Close your eyes for a moment. Try to remember the sharp, sweet smell of a dusty summer afternoon, or the bubbling sound of an old metal coffee pot on the stove. Welcome back, my old friend. Today we are taking a slow, comforting walk down memory lane. We are going to revisit 20 forgotten everyday items from 1960s, 70s, and 80s Hungary that we have lost forever. These are the objects that shaped our childhoods, filled our homes, and connected our families. Make sure to stay until the very end, because the last item we will talk about is a beautiful machine that gave us our first true taste of absolute freedom. Let us begin this journey together. Before we open the door to our past, let us remember how time used to feel. In those days, time simply flowed slower. We were never in a rush. We did not stare at glowing screens in our hands. Instead, we looked at each other. We learned the profound value of waiting. We waited for the television broadcast to start. We waited for a handwritten letter to arrive, and we patiently stood in line for fresh bread at the local bakery. Some people today might think that without modern technology, our lives were empty, but they are completely wrong. Our lives were incredibly rich. They were rich with genuine human connection, deep sincerity, and honest conversations. We cherished the small things because they held real meaning. The objects we used every day were not disposable. They were heavy, loud, and built to last a lifetime, just like the bonds we shared with our family and neighbors. And now, let us remember a taste that defined our summers. Close your eyes and think of the Bambi orange drink. Do you remember the heavy glass bottle with its slightly ribbed texture? It felt so cold against your warm, sweaty palm on a scorching July afternoon. We would sit on the sunlit terrace of a small cafe, perhaps near the shimmering waters of Lake Balaton. The waiter would pop off the metal cap, and you could hear that sharp, satisfying fizz. It was not like the soft drinks of today. The flavor was uniquely sweet, sticky, and vibrant, a bright orange liquid that tasted like pure joy. It smelled faintly of citrus and summer dust. We did not drink it in a hurry. We took our time, letting the bubbles tickle our noses, savoring every single drop because it was a special treat. Sharing a bottle of Bambi with a childhood friend meant the world. We would laugh, clink our bottles together, and feel like the kings of the neighborhood. The empty glass bottles were always returned, carefully placed back into their wooden crates with a loud clatter. That sticky, sweet orange taste is something we will never find in any modern store. It belongs entirely to our youth, locked away in those beautiful sunny afternoons of the 1960s. Let us move into the morning kitchen where the true heart of the home was found. Nothing brings back the feeling of a cozy morning quite like the Cotiogo espresso maker. It was a sturdy, slightly heavy metal pot shining softly in the early light. The ritual began before the sun even fully rose. You would unscrew the two metal halves, hearing that metallic grinding sound that meant a new day had started. Then came the rich, dark smell of finely ground roasted coffee beans. You scooped the coffee in, screwed it tight, and placed it on the small gas stove. And then we waited. We did not push a button and walk away. We stood there, watching the blue flame dance. Finally, the silence was broken by that wonderful, sputtering, bubbling noise, the sound that gave the pot its name. It meant the thick, dark coffee was rising. The whole kitchen instantly filled with an incredible, warm aroma that could wake up the entire house. Pouring that intense black coffee into small porcelain cups was a daily ceremony. Mothers and fathers would sit at the small table, sipping slowly in the quiet morning hours. That little metal pot was not just making coffee. It was brewing a moment of peace before the loud and busy world outside demanded our attention. Now think about the simple magic of the heavy soda siphon sitting on the kitchen counter. In the 1960s and 1970s, making sparkling water was a household event. The siphon was usually made of thick aluminium or brightly colored metal. It was heavy, sturdy, and always felt incredibly cool to the touch. The real excitement came when you had to change the small gas cartridge. You would twist the metal holder, pushing it firmly into place. Then came that sudden, loud hiss as the gas rushed into the water. It was a sound that made every child jump with anticipation. We did not buy plastic bottles of water back then. We made our own soda, mixing it with sweet, thick, homemade raspberry syrup from the pantry. Pressing the firm metal lever required strong fingers, and the water would spray out with an aggressive, joyful fizz. We took the empty metal cartridges back to the small local store to exchange them for full ones. It taught us to value what we had and to waste nothing. The sharp, sparkling taste of that freshly made soda on a hot Sunday afternoon is a memory deeply woven into the fabric of our family lunches. It was a sparkling symbol of togetherness. Let us step back into the kitchen and listen closely. Do you remember the constant, comforting hum of the Lehel refrigerator? It was not just an appliance. It was a sturdy, rounded member of the family, standing proudly in the corner. Opening it was a physical task. The thick metal handle required a strong, purposeful pull. When the heavy door finally clicked open, a wave of cool air rushed out, carrying the faint, familiar scent of stored vegetables, fresh butter, and milk in plastic bags. Inside, there was a tiny, frost-covered freezer compartment. That small, frozen box was a treasure chest, hiding precious blocks of ice cream for a warm Sunday afternoon. But the true memory of the Lehel refrigerator is the ritual of defrosting it. Every few months, the appliance was unplugged. The silence that followed felt strange and heavy in the kitchen. We placed thick towels on the floor to catch the melting ice. The whole family would wait for the frost to melt away, wiping the plastic shelves clean. The refrigerator was built to last for decades, becoming a silent witness to countless family dinners, late-night snacks, and quiet morning conversations. Let us move into the bathroom and recall the chaos and noise of washing day. Nothing quite compares to the mighty roar of the Haidu spin dryer. This small, barrel-shaped machine was an absolute powerhouse. In the 1960s, doing laundry was an all-day event, full of steam, hot water, and the strong smell of heavy washing soap. When the clothes were washed by hand, they were carefully placed into the spin dryer. The moment you pressed the lid down and locked it, the entire bathroom would begin to vibrate. The machine would spin incredibly fast, letting out a loud jet engine roar that echoed up and down the staircase of the apartment building. It danced and shook across the tiled floor, and sometimes you literally had to sit on it or hold it down with all your weight to keep it still. But it did its job perfectly. The water would pour out of the small spout into a bucket, and the clothes came out tightly packed and only slightly damp. The sound of that spinning machine meant that the hard work of the week was almost done. It was the noisy, comforting sound of a clean and well-kept home. Another unforgettable sound from our childhood weekends was the deafening roar of the Roquetta vacuum cleaner. Shaped exactly like a silver torpedo or a small space rocket, it looked like something out of a science fiction movie. Pulling this heavy metal cylinder across the carpet was a serious chore. It had a smooth, cold, metallic surface that was fascinating to touch. When you flipped the switch, the motor roared to life with an incredible volume. You could not hear the television, and you could not hear your mother calling you from the kitchen. It simply drowned out the entire world. The air would suddenly fill with a distinct, slightly warm smell of heated motor oil and disturbed dust. We dragged it by its thick woven hose, maneuvering it around the heavy wooden furniture. Emptying the cloth dust bag outside was a messy ritual of its own. Despite its noise and weight, the Roquetta was indestructible. It survived for years, passing from one room to another, cleaning up after birthday parties, winter holidays, and quiet Sunday afternoons. It reminds us of a time when things were built heavily, loudly, and meant to stay with us for a lifetime. Now let us calm down and remember the pure magic of a winter evening. Imagine the living room with the curtains drawn tight. Do you remember the Diavitito, our beloved slide projector? This small metal box was our personal cinema. Someone would carefully hang a clean white sheet on the living room wall or against the heavy wooden wardrobe. The room would go dark and the projector would be switched on. Instantly you could smell the warm, slightly burning scent of the hot light bulb heating up the metal casing and the dusty film rolls. You would feed the thin strip of film into the slot, turning the small plastic knob with a satisfying click. A bright, colourful image would appear on the sheet, illuminating the dark room. We did not have endless television channels. We had these silent, still frames of fairy tales. A parent or older sibling would read the captions out loud, their voice floating in the quiet room. We sat on the floor, mesmerized by the dust particles dancing in the bright beam of light. It was a deeply intimate, shared experience. We were not just watching a story, we were creating it together in the warmth of our own home. Let us stay in the living room and look at the center of our evening entertainment. The heavy wooden munkaksi or kekes television set. It was not a flat piece of plastic on the wall. It was a massive piece of furniture, polished and proud. Turning it on was an exercise in patience. You would push the heavy button and wait. First there was a faint crackle of static. Then the smell of warming electronic tubes slowly drifted into the air. Finally, a small dot of light appeared in the center of the glass screen, slowly expanding into a black and white picture. There were no remote controls. You had to stand up and turn the clunky dial to change the single available channel. And remember, on Mondays, there was no broadcast at all. Monday evenings were for talking, playing cards, or reading books. When the television was on, it was a special event. The whole family gathered around the glowing screen, watching the evening news or a rare movie. The snowy, grainy picture and the warm glow of the screen brought a profound sense of unity. We knew that our neighbors, our friends, and the entire country were watching the exact same images at the exact same time. Let us travel back to our school days and open our old bags. You can almost feel the rough texture of the Coccus Fazette, the classic checkered notebook. Every Hungarian student grew up with these. The cover was usually thin and plain, but the inside held a unique magic. When you opened it, you were greeted by the crisp, dry smell of fresh paper and the unmistakable scent of the blue blotting paper tucked inside. We used fountain pens back then, filling them carefully from small glass ink bottles. Writing was a slow, deliberate art. You could hear the scratchy, rhythmic sound of the metal nib gliding across the checkered paper. If you pressed too hard, the ink would pool, and you had to gently press the soft blotting paper over the wet words. Our fingers were almost always stained with dark blue ink, a proud mark of our daily studies. The discipline of keeping your notebook clean and writing with beautiful cursive letters taught us respect and patience. Starting a fresh, perfectly clean page on a Monday morning felt like a new beginning. Those small, fragile notebooks held our earliest thoughts, our mistakes, and the quiet, diligent effort of our youth. Now let us step outside and catch a ride on the iconic yellow and blue Icarus bus. The moment you stepped on board, you were hit by the strong, unforgettable smell of diesel fuel and thick black rubber flooring. The bus roared and rattled over the cobblestone streets, but the most nostalgic detail is the small mechanical ticket puncher mounted on the metal pole. It was a heavy silver contraption. You held your thin paper ticket, slipped it into the narrow slot, and pulled the black lever down with force. There was a loud, satisfying crunch as the metal pins punched a unique pattern of holes into the paper. It was a tactile, physical interaction that required effort. Sometimes the lever was stiff and you had to use both hands. We kept those little punch tickets in our coat pockets, rubbing the rough edges with our thumbs as we looked out the window at the passing city. There were no digital passes or plastic cards. Just the loud rumble of the engine, the shaking of the seats, and the simple, honest paper ticket that proved we were on our way somewhere in the busy, vibrant streets of the 1970s. And speaking of travel, we cannot forget the sound that defined the streets of our childhood, the unmistakable sputtering rhythm of the two-stroke Trabant engine. Long before you saw the small, rounded car, you could hear its loud, rattling approach. It sounded like a sewing machine on wheels. And then came the smell, a distinct, lingering cloud of mixed petrol and oil that hung in the air long after the car had passed. The Trabant was tiny, made of Duraplast, and getting inside felt like climbing into a small, friendly tin can. The steering wheel was thin and hard, cold to the touch in the winter. The doors closed with a hollow, rattling thud. Yet this little car represented total freedom. Whole families would pack into its cramped interior, squeezing bags and children together for a weekend trip to a small cottage or a summer journey to Lake Balaton. The engine roared loudly as it struggled up a hill, and we cheered it on. It was not fast, and it was certainly not quiet, but it was ours. The Trabant was a beloved member of the family, carrying us through the miles of our youth with stubborn reliability and endless charm. Let us return home for a moment of sweet indulgence. Think of the elegant, elongated cardboard box sitting on the living room table. Inside was the matchkenjav, or cat tongue chocolate. This was not an everyday snack. It was an extraordinary treat, usually brought by a grandmother visiting for a name day or a holiday. Opening the box was a delicate process. Under the beautiful cover, the chocolates lay in perfectly neat rows, separated by thin, crisp paper. You could instantly smell the rich, sweet aroma of quality cocoa. Each piece was smoothly shaped, wider at the ends and thin in the middle, resembling a small tongue. Picking one up required a gentle touch, as the thin chocolate would quickly begin to melt between your warm fingers. We placed it on our tongues, closed our eyes, and let it dissolve slowly, savoring the incredibly smooth, sweet flavor. There was no rushing. You wanted to make the feeling last as long as possible. The empty box was often kept, used to store buttons, small letters, or precious childhood treasures. The matchkenjav was a symbol of love, a rare luxury that made us feel deeply special and cherished in a world of simple means. Now think about the feeling of tying the laces on a brand new pair of Tisa shoes. In the 1970s and 1980s, the Tisa brand was an absolute legend. These were not just shoes, they were a statement. Taking them out of the box, you were met with the strong, fresh smell of new rubber, canvas, and leather. The iconic T logo on the side was a badge of honor on the school playground. Putting them on for physical education class felt like wearing armor. They were sturdy, heavy, and incredibly reliable. We remember the loud, high-pitched squeak the thick rubber soles made on the polished wooden floor of the school gymnasium during a fierce game of dodgeball. We wore them until the white rubber turned grey, until the canvas frayed at the edges and the laces grew thin. We climbed trees, ran through dusty streets, and played football on the asphalt until the sun went down. The Tisa shoes carried the physical weight of our active outdoor childhoods. They were built for endless running and jumping, capturing the restless, energetic spirit of a generation that lived life entirely outside the house. Let us slow down and listen to the airwaves of the past. Remember the heavy rectangular Videoton portable radio sitting on the kitchen windowsill or resting on a blanket at the beach? It usually came encased in thick, dark leather, which had a distinct musky smell, especially when warmed by the afternoon sun. It was heavy, packed with massive batteries. The magic happened when you turned the small, stiff dial. First you heard loud, crackling static, the sound of empty space. Then slowly you tuned in to a distant signal. A faint, slightly distorted voice or a beautiful melody would push through the noise. It required patience and a gentle touch to find a clear station. Late at night, you could hear music from faraway countries fading in and out like a ghost. The glowing dial in the dark room felt like a small, mysterious window to the rest of the world. We carried that radio everywhere, to picnics, to the garden, or just sat by it while doing homework. That warm, analog sound, accompanied by the gentle hiss of static, is a comforting acoustic memory of a time when the world felt vast and deeply mysterious. Look closely at the surfaces of your childhood home. Under the heavy radio, beneath the crystal vase, or protecting the top of the television set, there was always a folk art doily. These Nemuvazetti terito pieces were essential to every household. They were crafted from thick, crisp linen, deeply embroidered with vibrant red, black, or blue threads in traditional floral patterns. When you touched them, you could feel the raised, textured stitches of the heavy thread. They were always perfectly starched and ironed, carrying the fresh, clean smell of warm steam and laundry soap. These doilies were not bought quickly in a supermarket. They represented hours of patient, loving handwork, often passed down from grandmothers and aunts. They brought a touch of vibrant, rural heritage into the modern, concrete apartment blocks of the city. We were taught to respect them, to never spill anything on them, and to appreciate the intricate beauty of the kalosha or matio embroidery. Placing the doily carefully on the table was a ritual of making a house feel like a true home. It was a quiet, woven reminder of our roots, our culture, and the loving hands of the women who created them. Let us walk down to the bustling morning market. In your hand you hold a sheker, the traditional woven string shopping bag. It started out small, easily crumpled into the pocket of your winter coat. But as you walked through the market stalls, it transformed. You could smell the earthy scent of fresh carrots, the spicy aroma of green paprika, and the damp soil of potatoes. As you bought your daily groceries, you placed them into the sheker. The woven strings would stretch and expand in every direction, magically making room for just one more item. When it was full, it became incredibly heavy. The thin strings would pull taut and dig slightly into the palm of your hand, leaving deep red lines on your skin. But we carried it proudly. Through the open gaps in the string, everyone could see the vibrant colors of the fresh vegetables and golden loaves of bread you were bringing home. There were no useless plastic bags filling up our garbage bins. The checker was a beautiful, practical tool that lasted for years. It represents a simpler time when we bought only what we needed, fresh for the day, deeply connected to the rhythm of the local market. Let us step into a quiet espresso bar on a rainy afternoon. The air is thick with the scent of strong black coffee and the unmistakable sweet aroma of Symphonia cigarettes. Back in the 1970s, the small paper box with its elegant, minimalist design was everywhere. You can still imagine the sound of the thin cellophane wrapper crinkling as someone opened a fresh pack. Inside, there was a delicate layer of silver foil. Pulling that foil away revealed the neatly packed cigarettes, smelling strongly of dry, rich tobacco. The ritual of lighting one was a moment of connection. You would hear the sharp strike of a match, smell the sudden burst of sulfur, and watch the blue smoke rise slowly towards the ceiling. People did not rush through their breaks. They sat down, ordered a strong espresso from the hissing coffee machine, and engaged in deep, meaningful conversations. The cigarette box resting on the small round table was a centerpiece for storytelling, debates, and shared secrets. It belongs to an era where time seemed to stand still in those smoky, dimly lit cafes, wrapped in the warmth of adult conversation and the comforting rhythm of shared silence. Do you remember the satisfying weight of a pocket full of coins? We cannot forget the old aluminium filler coins and the small, sturdy takarekoniv, our savings book. The coins were incredibly light, yet when they clinked together in your pocket, they sounded like real treasure. They had a distinct, slightly metallic and dusty smell on your hands. As children, we carefully collected these tiny coins. When we had enough, we walked proudly to the post office. Handing the coins over the counter, the clerk would take our small paper savings book. The pages inside were filled with neat, handwritten columns of numbers. You could hear the solid, loud thump of the heavy rubber stamp pressing down on the page, officially recording your deposit. There were no instant digital transfers or invisible numbers on a screen. Saving money was a physical, patient process. Watching the balance grow line by line taught us the true value of waiting and planning. That small booklet held our dreams of buying a new bicycle, a special toy, or a gift for a parent. It was a tangible record of our discipline, teaching us that good things come to those who wait and save. Let us return to the quiet comfort of a Sunday afternoon. The house is silent. The lunch dishes are washed, and resting on the armchair is the latest issue of Noklapcha. This weekly magazine was the heart of the household for women across the country. When the postman dropped it in the mailbox, it brought the distinct, slightly rough smell of cheap newspaper print and fresh, colourful ink. The pages were large and thin, making a soft, rustling sound as you turned them. Mothers and grandmothers would sit for hours, reading the deeply human stories, the practical advice, and the new recipes. They would carefully cut out paper dress patterns with heavy iron scissors, planning the next garment they would sew on their clicking sewing machine. The magazine was not just something to read, it was a shared experience. It was passed from neighbour to neighbour, from mother to daughter. The pages would become soft and worn at the edges from being read so many times. It connected families and communities, offering a window into the lives, struggles, and joys of others. It was a comforting, printed friend that always arrived to brighten the end of a long, hard-working week. Finally, let us ride out into the fading light of a summer evening on the unforgettable camping bicycle. The Kemping Bicikli was a masterpiece of our childhood. It had a heavy, robust steel frame, usually painted in a bright, glossy colour. The most fascinating part was the heavy metal hinge in the middle. You could hear the loud, metallic clack when you unlocked it, folding the entire bicycle in half to fit into the trunk of a car. When you rode it, you sat upright, gripping the thick, textured rubber handles. The smell of thick chain grease and road dust was always present. You pedalled hard, listening to the rhythmic clicking of the chain and the humming of the fat tires on the warm asphalt. We rode them everywhere, down dusty village roads, across concrete apartment courtyards, and alongside the shimmering lake. Pressing the small silver bell on the handlebar created a sharp ringing sound that echoed through the streets, warning friends we were coming. The camping bicycle gave us wings. It was our ticket to adventure, to the edge of town, and back home again before the streetlights turned on, marking the end of another magical day in our youth. As we reached the end of our journey, we realized a profound truth. We do not just miss these old, heavy and noisy items. What we truly miss is the way time felt when we held them. We miss the warmth of our youth, the unhurried afternoons, and the deep, unbreakable connection we had with one another. These objects were just the tools we used to build our memories, to show our love, and to share our lives. If this journey brought a warm smile to your face, please subscribe to the channel and leave a like on this video. It helps us keep these precious memories alive. Now, I want to ask you a question. Which of these 20 items brought back the strongest memory for you? Or is there another forgotten object from your childhood that you still miss today? Please, share your personal stories in the comments below. I would love to read them. Until we meet again, take care of yourself and never let go of those beautiful memories.